Hey guys, project-zodiac here. I'm back with another video and I am so excited for this one. This is a movie I've been waiting literally half my life for. If you guys saw my review of the first Avatar movie, you would understand why. Avatar is one of my all-time favorite movies, and ever since it came out, I always wanted to see this movie. I always wanted this movie to be made, the sequel. And like I said, it's been literally half my life. Um, I'm just so excited that this movie is finally out. It took 13 years for them to make, and I have a lot to say about it. Um, as of this particular moment, I have seen it 7 times in theater. All of it was in IMAX 3D, Dolby 3D, and regular 3D. It was all in 3D, which is the only way to watch really Avatar. I mean, when you're watching it at home, you can't really watch it in 3D unless you have a 3D TV. Um, but still, so that is one of the main reasons why I've seen it 7 times, because I want to experience it in 3D as much as I can. Also, on top of that, it's a movie I've literally been waiting half my life for, so I really, really wanted to watch it. So as of right now, seen it 7 times. I do have a lot to say, and I think it's good that I saw it a couple of times, and I'll explain that in a little bit. But with that said, I have another 2 times definitely booked. One for this Friday. The day I'm recording this is January 3rd, but I saw it on December 15th, so it's been almost a month, and I've seen it 7 times already. Um, but yeah, so I'm seeing it this Friday. Today's Tuesday, and then sometime maybe in the next week or two, and then I'll probably add a 10th time in. I don't know. I might see it more because I love this movie a lot. Um, Now, getting into the review, I don't know if I like it as much as the first movie or more than the first movie. It's definitely not worse than the first movie. So it's literally as good as the first movie or slightly better. And we'll talk a little bit about that. But before I really go on with the review, I kind of wanted to give like a little bit of a spoiler. Well, not spoiler warning, but most of this review or a part of this review is going to be spoiler free. Right now, it's all spoiler free. I'm gonna reach a point where I'm gonna say like, okay, the rest of this video is gonna be spoiler talk. If you guys haven't seen the movie, just come back after you watch the movie. Um, so I think that that's fair. That way I don't need to do 2 separate videos and have to upload them. Um, and I'm just able to really let my thoughts flow out a lot easier. So again, I'll be very, very clear when it is a spoiler or when the spoiler section comes, and then the rest of the video will be spoiler. But for now, it's all spoiler free. Um, so I just want to get that out of the way because I think that that's pretty important. But I'm also sorry I'm handheld with my phone. I just was too lazy to get my tripod, and I don't think it really makes sense to get that for these movie reviews, considering I'm always sitting down and I could just literally hold my phone. Um, but with that said, though, let's get into this review because I'm so excited to talk about this movie. Um, so yeah, this is a movie I've been waiting half my life for, and I did not watch any trailers for this other than the first trailer. And then when they re-released Avatar in theaters back in September, they added in a few minutes, I think like 3 minutes, clip in it at the end of it, and it kind of didn't really spoil anything. So I'm like, all right, I'm gonna watch it. So I stayed towards the end of the credits and I watched that. Um, but I didn't watch the second trailer. I didn't really want to look at reviews. And then when the initial reactions came out, I was like, okay, let me just see what people are just initially saying about this. Um, and what ended up happening was a lot of people were talking a lot about this movie. Like they were praising it. They were saying like how it's better than the first one. They were saying a lot of things. And this is important to this review because I want to give you guys my actual thoughts on this and how my thought process went as I was watching the movie, especially because, like I said, it's a good thing I think that I saw it multiple times in theaters because of the things that I'm saying right now. So a lot of people said it was very focused on family. A lot of people also said that this particular movie was, how can I say this? Like the ending of it was intense and extremely like breathtaking, and like a lot of people were hyping up the ending, the last, or not even the ending, but like the last hour, because this movie is 3 hours and 12 minutes, and I'm so happy it is because I don't know, it's just so good. Before I forget about that, it is 3 hours and 12 minutes, but you don't even feel like it's 3 hours and 12 minutes. There's just so much and so much things happens, and so much information that it really feels like a 2 hour, 15 minute movie. Um, so, but yeah, so a lot of people hyped up the ending of this movie a lot, and with that, that started putting some expectations on my mind about like, oh, what is it gonna look like and all of that stuff. Um, and a lot of people, including the press release, kept talking a lot about Spider, the human kid in the movie. And it's not gonna be a spoiler at all. I'm just saying that a lot of the press release talked about Spider, how he's the adopted human child of Jake and Thierry, and all of that. So because of that, when I kept reading that, so many articles and every reviewer just kept saying the same thing: Spider, their human son, or adopted human son. So in my mind, I had all these expectations about like how the ending was gonna be, about how they're gonna handle Spider because like he's different from everyone, all of that. Um, and this is like the main reason why I didn't want to see more than the one trailer, and I probably shouldn't had even looked up those reviews or even those press releases, but I was just so excited for it because this movie, at least for like the first half of it, when I was watching it for the first time, I'm like, okay, this is not what I was thinking it was gonna be. Um, they also talk about a lot of the press release and a lot of the reviewers also talked about the purpose of why humans are coming to Earth. That I'm not gonna say because that is a big spoiler. But the thing that they had said is not the reason why the humans are on Earth. The thing that they said ties into it, but it's not the plot of the movie. It's not like, yeah, it's just not the plot of the movie. Like, it's not the focus of the movie. That's what I'm trying to say. It is an important thing, but it's not the actual reason for what leads to the events of the movies, and that's what a lot of people were saying. So those three things: the reason for why humans are on Earth, um, about Spider, and then the ending. Everybody's saying all these things. It made me think that this movie was gonna go one way, and it didn't. And because of that, when I was the first hour and a half of it, or 2 hours of it, I was like, okay, where's all of these things? Because it's very clearly not here. So I was very confused, and I was kind of like, all right, I'm not sure how I'm feeling about this because I had all these expectations based off of what these people were saying, which is why I just don't trust reviewers anyway, because they go and manipulate things like this for no reason at all. Um, so that's basically what happened. I'm just gonna say this again, it's not a spoiler. This one is okay to say. The marketing for this has been really misleading. Again, the reason why the villains are there, it's again a slight part of it, but it's not the focus of the movie. But they make it seem like it is, so that's already misleading. Another thing is the big finale. The finale was amazing. It really, really was, but it was different than what I was expecting. Um, because everyone hyped it up, so I was expecting this, thing, and it wasn't. Again, I don't want to go into spoilers right now. Um, so then we get the Spider situation. This is the one I can freely talk about because this one's just straight out. You find out literally 2 minutes into the movie, so it's not even a spoiler. Everyone kept talking how Spider is Jake's adopted human son. That is a lie. That is a big lie. He is not his adopted human son. Jake straight out says, literally at the very start of the movie, and then there was Spider. He's just here. He's like a stray cat, and he was raised by the humans, but he's always been around our kids. So in a way, Spider is like their adopted cousin, not their adopted son. And so many of like Jake's actual kids, they talk to Spider like, "Hey, cuz," things like that. So some of them do call him bro, or brother, but most of the time they're talking with him. From what I noticed, it was cuz or cousin. So again, that made me so annoyed because stuff happens at the start of the movie, and I'm like, why are they not addressing Spider? Like, what is going on? Like, where's the Spider feeling like an outcast thing? Because that's what I had in my mind because of how misleading and that marketing was. So I have to say that I know it's already been 10 minutes, but that was important because the first time I was watching this movie for the first 2 hours, I was expecting all of these things. And I'm like, what? Why are they not going this way? Again, because of how the reviewers are. So this is kind of like a complaint about reviewers and promotional marketing stuff when they mislead you to thinking stuff. And so anyway, the second half of that movie, when I was first watching it, I understood and I was able to accept the direction that they were going, and I started to love it a lot. And then by the end of that movie, again, that last hour is intense. It's amazing. Um, I just didn't really know what to expect, and I was a little bit let down because of what the reviewers were saying. But again, when I looked at it, I'm like, no, this makes sense. I'm not let down because this is actually really well done. Um, the way that the big last hour works. So again, I was expecting like the last hour to be like explosions from literally like right here is just all explosions, and there is explosions. Actually, that's one of my complaints with the movie. The explosions in the movie, I just feel like they were overdone. Because there's a lot of them, and they just like literally like a train touches one thing and it explodes, and then it, instead of like tumbling over and then like maybe catching fire or something, no, it explodes like huge explosion. So I felt like all of the explosions in this movie was a little forced, but that was really one of my biggest complaints, and we'll talk about some of my other complaints in a minute. um but yeah, so that ending, I was expecting just explosions and like all of these things happening at once, but that wasn't the case. It's a slower build up. That I think I can say it's a slower build up to all of the things that I was expecting. And as I was watching it again, because I was so focused with what everyone was saying, um, I wasn't able to really understand why it was sent that big explosion section. But then later on, I understood when we got to the explosion section of that finale. But again, it's very tense. That whole last hour is tense for sure. There's a few moments where it's like clenching, the armrest, and I'm just like, what is going on? So that was really well done. Um, so again, out of all of those things outside, now I can actually talk about my thoughts about it. So when I saw it the second time, I already knew what to expect because I now knew the direction it went, and I was able to fully like get rid of the expectations that the reviewers and the promotional material put for me. And when I saw it that second time with a much clearer mind about the whole movie, I was really just in love. When I left the first time I saw it, I told me and my cousin, sorry, I told my cousin, like, dude, I feel like this movie is just as good as the first one. I don't know yet if I like it more than the first one though, but it's definitely as good. But when I again, because I still was coming out, I was, I had already accepted how it was gonna be, and then when I saw it that second time, I'm like, okay, now I don't know if it's better than the first one. I think it might be better than the first one, honestly, um, but it's definitely not worse. It's definitely as good or better for sure. So again, when I was able to watch with a clearer mind, right away I understood everything, and it was just fantastic. This movie is so good. Um, so it was so emotional. It's such an emotional movie, and it's dark. It's like a really, really dark, violent movie, and I loved how it was handled. It's also very focused on family, and for me, I love that kind of thing. Um, Now, I do feel like they kind of focus a little too much on Jake and Neytiri's kids, and we'll talk about them in a minute. But Jake and Neytiri, they're present, except that I like what they did with Jake. I don't mind that. My one of my biggest complaint is kind of how they handled Neytiri, because she's there, but then she's just there. Like in that first hour, she's like vicious, she's cool, she's caring, and then the rest of the movie she's just kind of there, and not really even doing much. You don't even really get to see her too much when they're with the water people, the Matakaina tribe. Um, you only see her in a few shots every now and then. So I was a little bit disappointed with that. But then in the last hour, when it's all action again, yeah, she's one of the best parts about that. But I just feel like they could have given half of Jake's lines to Neytiri, because again, she's kind of not really there. She almost kind of comes off as the, and I told my cousin this when we were watching it. After we got out of the movie for the first time I saw it, I felt like she was a stereotypical mom that is kind of vicious. Um, and like, if you look at her and you annoy her, you know that your mom is literally gonna give you like the like biggest like um spanking, or like the biggest like yell, or like the biggest grounding, like that kind of mom, like the strict mom. Um, and my cousin was like, "Really? I thought that Jake was like the strict dad." I'm like, "Jake was, but like Neytiri was that kind of mom, but more kind of like nice about it, more in the sense of like, look, I'm gonna let your dad handle this, and if you guys don't listen to him, you don't want me to get involved, because you're gonna have a worse time if I get involved than if your dad is gonna be handling you." That's how she felt, like that kind of mom. And when I explained that to him, he's like, "Oh yeah, yeah, I kind of can see that." Um, but yeah, she's pretty cool. Jake himself was, I really like what they did with Jake in this one. And their kids and all of the new characters, I thought that they were so well done. I really, really, really liked them. Um, the Matekaina tribe, they're really, really cool. I love the differences between them. Although I do think that their CGI is a little more CGI compared to the Matakaina tribe. So like Jake and Eitiri's tribe. Um, Jake and Eitiri's tribe just look real, and we can talk a little bit about that in a second. But the Matakaina tribe, there are moments where they look real, but then I'm like, yeah, that kind of just looks a little like CG. Um, I think it comes more down to the way that the eyes are, because their eyes are like huge compared to the Matakaina tribe. Um, but or maybe it's just, I think maybe the aqua skin color that they have, like it just is so vibrant that it does seem a little CGI. That's what I'm trying to talk about. I think they could have darkened it a little bit more, um, just to make it not as like artificial, I guess, because it looked a little artificial. I think that's what I'm trying to say. Whereas the Jake and Neytiri's one, their skin colors are a little bit darker, but we'll talk about that in a second. But that doesn't really change too much in the sense, because there are moments where the Matakaina tribe, you see them and like with their hands and the way that their lips are, when it's really focused on them, they look real. It just looks slightly off because of how big their eyes are. But from a distance, that's what I'm talking about. Um, but yeah, so I loved the tribe, and a thing for me is I love. Oh, and this is another thing. A lot of people hyped up about how spiritual this movie was going to be, and I was really excited for that. Um, and it is definitely a lot more spiritual too. So again, this was another thing that I had expectations for based off of what so many people were saying. So it is definitely more spiritual than the first one, but not way more spiritual compared to how everyone else hypes it up. It's just, I would say like maybe 4%, 5% more spiritual, like maybe like 7% more spiritual, something like that. 7 to 10% more spiritual. Um, but yeah, I was expecting it to be like 60, 70% more spiritual based off of how people were hyping that up or talking about that. Um, so, but I really liked that. I loved how spiritual this movie was, and the spiritual tones in it. So, going back to what I was saying, for me, I love the forest, and I love the ocean and the water, and I love the supernatural and mystical things, things like that. It's always interesting how these things all work. So for me, this movie had all of that. I do wish we had a little bit more time in the forest, but we spent a decent amount of time there, I think. The amount of time we spent there, I think, is enough. I think maybe adding an additional 5 to 10 minutes in the forest would have been nicer. But the amount we have is already good enough. It's just because I also like the forest. But yeah, so the fact that this movie has the forest, it has a spiritual side of things, and it has the water element of it. It was for me, it's like home, you know. So I was just really really amazed by that. And the first time we go underwater, it's breathtaking. It really feels like you're underwater. Um, so for me, this movie had these elements that I loved, and they did a fantastic job. Plus the family aspect of it as well. Um, Now, James Cameron had also said that this movie is aimed and targeted towards people who are older and have kids. And I can kind of understand that. I mean, I'm just 26, I don't have kids, you know? So I can kind of understand where these family aspect is, you know. I mean, I have dogs. Like, I care about my dogs, and I'm very protective of my dogs. um so I guess that's the closest I can kind of get to that. And also, like, my family, because like I said, I care a lot about family. I'm very protective of my family, of my friends. I try to take care of them. So I can kind of understand what he was trying to tell with, in terms of the parent and child aspect of things. um but at the same time, he did say, like, now Jake and Neytiri are older. I read in the wiki that in Avatar 1, Neytiri was 18 and Jake was 22. I'm sorry, that does not make any sense at all. For me, Jake was like 30 or 32 in the first movie, and Neytiri probably in like her mid to late 20s. Um, so for me, that's how they are. Um, so for me, in this movie, because it's set 15 years later, they're in their 40s or very late 30s. Um, so they're still pretty young, but now they're focused on their kids and protecting their kids. So that's not really something I can relate to. So James Cameron had kept saying, like, oh yeah, now they're a lot more grounded. You don't see them doing the reckless stuff that they used to do in the first movie, and that is true. Um, you see their kids doing that, so I felt like their kids was a lot more relatable to me because they're also a lot closer in age to me. And it just makes more sense, like, because I do reckless things just like they still do, me and my friends. Um, so yeah, that was something that I could relate to. I could really relate to the kids, especially with Kiri. Kiri was amazing. Like, all of the kids, um, Kiri, Loak, Natium, Tuk, they were all done so well. But Kiri, Tuk was just adorable. She was literally like, they literally showed an 8-year-old perfectly. Um, Kiri, she's about 15 or 6, no, 14 or 15, and being an outcast, I loved that aspect of her. Natium, the mighty warrior, he's the oldest. He's about 8, no, he's about 15, or something like that, 14 or 15. And he's just so cool. And then you have Spider, again, not a sibling, but you can count him as a cousin. He's the oldest. He's around 18. And they all do pretty well. And then Loak, I can understand his motivations for making trouble, a lot of trouble. So again, I can relate a lot more to those kids. The kids, they did really well for teenagers and young adults. And I feel like for Jake and Neytiri, they handled that as parents pretty well. Um, so I saw it once with my mom. She also thought that she got really emotional with it, and she understood like how Jake and Neytiri were. And there was a moment, I'm not going to spoilers, but I was telling my mom, and she was like, "Oh, what was one of your favorite parts?" I'm like, "Oh, there was so many," but I mentioned the one in terms of what Jake says, and she started laughing, and she's like, "Yep, that's how it is, you know, like you're a parent, but when you're still young, because they're still young, they're like late 30s or early 40s, like I said, so they still have that youth, you know, like youthness in them, and." There was just a conversation between Jake and one of his kids, and I was just like, "Yep, no, that's hilarious," because he's like being a dad, but he's like, you know, trying to like, um, still be himself, you know, like because he's still in that, you know, young era. So I thought that that was really really well done. Because it's kind of like, yeah, you're kind of trying to be a dad, but then you kind of want to like praise all of this as well and kind of be like a friend at the same time. So that's what I meant. But yeah, overall, like I love the music. Oh, before I forget, one of my favorite things in this movie. Like I've seen it 7 times, and I don't want to be late for it because the intro of this movie is so breathtaking. And there's this song that they sing. It's called the song chord. There's like 3 versions of it. And it's all official, the 3 versions, and they play I think all 3 throughout the movie. Um, but do not listen to this song until you watch this movie, um, because it's where Neytiri is singing, and it is so beautiful. Like I'm in love with that song. So every time I'm like, nope, we have to go because we gotta see this. Like we have to be there in time because I do not want to miss Neytiri singing because it's such a beautiful song. Um, and yeah, that song is just fantastic. So the music in this movie is pretty well done. I think the music in the first one was a little bit more alien, and this one feels a little bit more traditional, with some more alien stuff in it. Um, but yeah, the that song, the song chord, it's so beautiful. It is so so beautiful. On top of that, we have the cinematography. The cinematography was amazing. I do feel like I could tell a few moments where some things were cut out, because again they filmed a lot of stuff. So I do wish that they could have cut some of those things in because I honestly do wish the movie was a little bit longer. Um, so I just loved it. Honestly, I hope for the 4K release that they release an extended like a 4 hour cut. I will be so happy if they release a 4 hour cut. Um, because yeah, I really really like that. Also, real quick, a lot of people complain about Spider, and a lot of people think that he was pointless. No, I loved Spider. I think that he was really well done, especially when I realized the direction that they were going with him. Um, so again, the way that they handled him, I really really liked. Even when I was watching the movie for the first time, I'm like, why are people complaining about him? Um, because I personally thought that they handled Spider really really well. Um, and yeah, just in general, like now I guess we can kind of talk a little bit more about the special effects and how it looks. Like some shots look so realistic, and that's what I was trying to say. When they're like really close and very focused on a Navi, they look amazing. There was a few shots where like they're swimming too, and you're like, is that CG water or is that regular water? And then until you see like a human, you can tell that like, okay, so it is real water. But at the same time, you can kind of tell when it's real water because water behaves in a certain way, especially when it's like crashing on stuff or like hitting people or hitting things, um, that I feel like you just can't fully replicate when you are on doing CGI water. A lot of this movie was filmed like actually on water, um, and I feel like that was done really really good. Um, but for the background, there's CG water, but it still looks pretty good. Um, but yeah, so but then there's some shots where like I'm like, how did they do that with the CG? Because that looks so good. It literally looks like they put very high quality body paint on them. Um, so yeah, that was just so cool. The CG for it again is amazing and definitely better than the first movie. So seeing the CG for this movie, now seeing it like CG for other big budget movies like Marvel, I'm like, Marvel, what are you guys doing? You know, like this is one movie. Um, and yeah, so I don't know. I just think that the CG for this movie is really well done. Cinematography as well, and just the props and the sets and the music, it's just so good. And the underwater stuff, like I said, is amazing. The night stuff as well is fantastic. So again, I loved this movie. This is what I'm gonna say. The first movie felt like it was a romance story with mystery about being in a new world and that first experience in seeing that new world, and with a big epic in it in the end with a little bit of spirituality. That's the first movie. This movie is a family movie with a smaller scale epic. It's still very, very epic. I'm just saying, like, the epic, like I said, is a smaller scale epic, but still done super well. With a little bit more spirituality and a lot more emotional. Like this movie was really emotional. I got emotional in some many parts. I didn't cry in it, but I did get very, very, very emotional, especially like towards the end and actually throughout the entire movie. I was just really emotional. And like I said earlier, this one is way darker and way more violent, and it was done really, really well. There was one shot in particular where I'm like, oh, okay, they're just gonna cut out from that, right? And then nope, you just, yeah, you just see that, and I'm like, okay, that's shocking. I'm surprised I actually got away with that for a PG-13 movie. I'm making it seem like it's a big deal, but it kind of isn't. That particular thing, because it's kind of small compared to like how I'm making it seem, but it still is like impressive that they actually decided to go and do that. And that's set during the ending, like during that last hour, more or less. Um, and yeah, like there was just so much good stuff here. And every time I go, like my friends were like, "Dude, how many times are you seeing it?" Because I've been seeing it with different people. I think only 2 times so far. I've seen it alone. Um, but every time I'm saying to my friends, like, "Oh, I'm gonna go watch it again," they're like, "Again? How are you not like? It's a good movie, but like, are you not bored?" I'm like, "No, I get excited to see this movie again." Um, so yeah, and I watch it, and it's just amazing. It's just fun. I saw it, for example, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday all in a row when it released. And then a few days later, I think on Tuesday, so I had like a day off from watching it. Um, but yeah, it's amazing. I'm just trying to think if there is anything else I wanted to say in this spoiler free section before I get into some of my complaints. I said one of them being Neytiri, I think could have been there. And then I said my complaints about the expectations. Um, oh, right. I personally feel like they had way too many callbacks to the first movie, even specific dialogues. And I'm like, especially in the first hour, and I'm like, it's fine, I have that, but I feel like they had way too much. But I understood afterwards why they did that because, again, it has been 13 years since the first movie, and not everyone can easily watch the first movie. And those were some of the more iconic things from the first movie. So again, I can understand that. And when I was able to understand that, I was able to enjoy the movie a lot more. I still do think they did a little too much with the callbacks, but it works. At this point, after watching it 7 times, honestly, I'm not even bothered by it anymore. I just end up feeling like it's a part of the movie, and I just embrace it because it works. It really does work. Um, so that was one complaint. I guess another real complaint I had is, again, I wish it was a little bit longer. Um, there was one thing in particular I really wanted to complain about, but I can't remember what it was right now. It was definitely Neytiri, I think. Yeah, I guess it was the Neytiri part. But overall, I love this movie. And there's one thing I wanted to say. It's not a complaint, it's just something I want to say. But yeah, I love this movie. I personally, oh, and I loved a callback that this movie had to another movie, which I can't really talk about. I'll discuss that in my spoilers section. But I love this movie. And if I was to say, if again, I like this movie because this movie did a lot of things better than Avatar 1, but I feel like Avatar 1 did a few things better than this one. Like like I said, especially when it comes to the whole like being introduced to this world. Like every time I still watch Avatar 1, I think that that's some of the best aspects of it. And they kind of do that with this one with the water sections of it, but it felt more like okay, we're underwater, we're seeing fishes, we're and I love water like I said, and the night scenes in this is amazing. I love the night scenes in it. I do wish there was a little bit more night scenes. But with that said, I just feel like it was done so well that like in that first movie introducing you to this new world, that in this one you kind of feel like, all right, I'm already on this world. I feel like I live here now on Pandora. Exploring underwater, it's cool to see that because we didn't see that before, but at the same time it's kind of like I'm now used to it. So that was one thing I like that the first one did better, whereas this one, even though like seeing the glowing stuff and seeing like how not just the glowing stuff but like the water animals too, like it was impressive to see it, but at the same time it just feels like, yep, it's another Pandora animal. So again, with the first one, even rewatching it, it makes you like feel like you're seeing it for the first time, and then with this one, it kind of makes you feel like you're already there, like you've been there and you never left, and that's a fantastic thing. It's good that they make you do that, that then make you feel that. But that's just one example of one thing I think the first movie did a lot better than the other one, or than this one. This one, like for example, the emotion and the stakes, I think is a lot more done better in this one for sure. The character development is done so much better. The world building is done really, really well. Like it extends a lot more because it builds up more and it sets so much groundwork for the next sequels. Um, so there's a lot there that works. So again, these are things that this movie does better than the first one. Not that the first one didn't do world building good, it did it fantastic, like I just explained with introducing you to the world. It's just that this one really sets up more mystery and it sets up more thought about what is going on with this and that, like how does this connect. It's interesting to see these new tribes, it's interesting to see the different body formations, because like the Matakaina tribe, they're almost like fish people. Also, I almost forgot this, I love The Legend of Zelda, and when I got out of that movie, I'm like, I want to go play The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. Because I love the Zoras from The Legend of Zelda, and the Matakaina people kept reminding me of Zelda, and I'm like, please, can we get a live action Zelda movie? So that was really fun. Um, Honestly, at this point, I'm not even reviewing this movie, I'm more discussing it, so I'm gonna call this video review plus discussion. But yeah, so I love that so much because Zelda is literally one of my all-time favorite things, and yeah, so um, and also right before I forget again, this other thing because I wasn't even gonna say this and I just remembered it. Both movies, the first one and this one, the first movie, like I said, made me feel like I wanted to go home and sleep and dream. This movie still has that concept, and I'm glad that they kept that concept. I love like seeing like the consciousness going through that light thing. I love that. So I'm glad they kept that. For some things, I don't want to go into spoiler. I just wish it was a little bit longer. Um, but yeah. So and it was also slightly less colorful. I don't know why, but yeah, I wish it was a little bit more colorful, like in the first movie, and a little bit longer. But yes, this one also does make me feel like I want to go and dream and being in a dream world, or just dream in general, or daydream, because I do that a lot, just dreaming. um so this movie still has that, but what this movie has a little bit more than the first one is it also made me want to go out and swim. And because I love swimming, like I said, it made me want to go out and swim with fishes, even though I'm terrified of fishes. I'm not scared of sharks or turtles or dolphins or whales, but I'm terrified of fishes. But this movie made me want to go swimming with fishes. Um, and I love that, like, and it still made me feel like I was dreaming at the same time. Um, and it also made me want to go out and play Zelda Breath of the Wild, especially before Tears of the Kingdom come out. But yeah, you know, uh, so I love that this movie had those two elements. I kind of forgot what I was saying right before I got into that section, but I know I was comparing the two ones. But yeah, so both have elements that I love. So it's extremely hard for me to say which one I like more, because honestly, both of these movies are just so well done. And I really thank God that we finally got this movie, because again, it's literally been half my life. I've been waiting, and ever since the first movie came out, I kept like always looking up stuff. I talked about this in my Avatar video, so definitely watch that. Um, Now, there was one thing that I kept pushing off before I finished the spoiler-free discussion, and that is, um, well, I'm not gonna go once I'm done with this. I want to show something, and then I'm gonna get into the spoiler one. But again, I'll be very clear with that. Um, I don't know. So I just mentioned Zelda Breath of the Wild because I love Zelda. So this movie made me think about Zelda, and it also made me think about Xenoblade. And Xenoblade is one of my favorite video game series. I literally played through Xenoblade 3 that just released, and honestly, Avatar is one of the main reasons why I love the Xenoblade games, because the world of Xenoblade in general, like all the Xenoblade games, really makes me think about Pandora. And especially like with glowing sections at night, the different animals, the different races, it really makes me think about it. So when Avatar came out and then the first Xenoblade game, I saw that first trailer for it in 2010 or 11, I think. I was like, this looks so much like Avatar. Um, Not saying that Xenoblade is Avatar. No, I'm just saying it, the world of them is very similar in a way, and I love it. Um, but yeah, so this game made me think about Xenoblade, but it made me think about Xenoblade 3, the newest one in particular. And again, I love Xenoblade. If you guys are interested in that game, it's really, really cool. I made a bunch of videos already about Xenoblade in this channel, analyzing a lot of things regarding it. And my review for that will be, I just finished writing it the other day. It's gonna be about 40 minutes long, that review as well. Because in that review, I'll reminisce just like I am here in a way. But with that said, so hopefully you guys can check those videos out. But going back to Avatar, there's the concept of an eclipse, and that's also one of my last complaints. I don't really like how they explain the concept of the eclipse, because the eclipse is just a daily thing, I guess, but literally at the very start of the movie, literally within the first 5-10 minutes of it, um, Took says, "Oh, we have to be home by eclipse," and I'm like, "Okay, is eclipse what they call their sunset?" Because the kids were out just out in the forest and they were heading home. I'm not gonna say anything else. Just they have to be home by eclipse. So that line stuck to me, and I'm like, why do they need to be home by eclipse? They're acting as if like their parents were saying like, be home by sunset. So I'm like, okay, so maybe it is that, but later on we see more eclipses, and we're like, okay, so I guess the eclipse isn't their sunset. And I even had to look it up, and I'm like, and ask on Reddit, and I'm like, what is up with the eclipse? And then a lot of people were saying that in like some other sources that they talk about how like because Pandora isn't a planet, it's actually a moon, and they say that in the first movie too. The actual planet kind of comes in front of it, and so I guess this is something I wish the first movie had, or that they just explained better in this one, because it kind of just feels out of nowhere. I'm not gonna lie. But it works, and then when you understand that concept, you're like, okay, it makes sense. Just wish we saw it in the first one, and I just wish that they kind of explained it better here. But at least once per day, from my understanding, the planet passes in front of the sun, eclipsing it from the moon. and that usually lasts about 30 minutes. So I'm like, so why is it that they want to be home by or have to be home by eclipse? That just didn't really make a lot of sense. But there's another eclipse scene in this movie, and that eclipse scene, I'm like, that is straight out Xenoblade 3. Thanks for reminding me about that trauma. It's a good trauma. Because that scene in Xenoblade 3 that involves an eclipse, I'm not going to be going to spoilers, but it is so emotional. And I was literally like freaking out when that scene was happening. And I was just like, I don't know. It was just so emotional. So I'm like, what is up with 2022 and Xenoblade 3 and Avatar 2 having eclipse and literally having the exact same event happening on an eclipse? Like, what is going on? But yeah, the eclipse stuff was done really, really well, like extremely well. But that is also my last actual complaint. It's that um, they didn't really explain the concept of the eclipse too much. Like, how often does it come in the sun? Because from my understanding, it's like you have morning, then you have sunset, sorry, then you have afternoon, and then eclipse, and then sunset, and then night. Um, so I guess that like the eclipse is in the middle of your day. But yeah, so overall, guys, I loved this movie a lot. It does so much right, and I just really cannot pick which one I like better, Avatar 1 or 2. If I do have to pick, though, I do kind of want to say Avatar 2 kind of does a couple things better, but I just love the introduction that Avatar 1 gives to that world. So it's mostly that makes me say, like, no, they're kind of tied. But really, Avatar 2 does do things a lot better in many ways, for sure. Also, I know I kept talking a lot about Xenoblade and Xenoblade 3, and I have a lot of things related to Xenoblade in general, just like I do for Zelda. But my love for Xenoblade is just as big as my love for Avatar. I don't really follow Avatar like, the extended stuff. Even though now I want to. In fact, I was so excited when I found out that the original script for Avatar 2 that James Cameron wanted to make as the movie, he decided not to make it into a movie, but he liked it so much. It's not necessarily the very first script for Avatar 2, but it's one of the initial ones. That he decided to make that into a prequel to Avatar 2. So I'm really, really glad we're getting that, because basically it's Navi fighting humans in space, and that's really cool. Um, and that is released as a comic. So the first volume was released a while back, and I guess the second and third volume was also released right before the movie came out, the second movie. But I can't find it anywhere online. I just find it for pre-order for later this month in January. So I was able to get the first one because I guess that released. But like I said, it's 3 volumes long, and each volume is like 90 pages, I think. So I'm gonna wait to read the first volume until I get the second and third volume. But yeah, now I really, really like this movie. Even made me want to really, really get into the extended stuff. So this comic book that I'm talking about is called The High Ground, and it was supposed to be Way of Water, but they decided to make it a prequel to Way of Water. So it's set after Avatar 1 and right before Avatar 2, and it explains a lot of things. Um, but yeah, so there's also some showing about I forgot his name, but Jake's rival in the first movie. I forgot his name. Like his story before he dies in the first movie, and then there's so I want to read that as well. And then there's another comic that kind of shows Grace setting up the school in before the first movie. So I really want to read that as well. Um, so yeah, I don't have a lot of Avatar related things, honestly. All I have for merch, I suppose, is the first movie plus the extended version on Blu-ray, which I really hope they release a 4K for it soon. Also, one other thing I almost forgot: the high frame rate. Yeah, it kind of works better on this one than it did in the re-release for Avatar one. I just think that it wasn't really needed. Um, like there's one scene where I'm like, why does that feel so smooth like a video game? Even my cousin, when he was watching with me after, he was like, there were some scenes that kind of made me feel like I was watching a video game cutscene. I'm like, yeah, I wonder why. It's because of the high frame rate in those particular scenes. Doesn't mean it looks fake. It just yeah, it's very smooth. Um, so, and I saw it in those three formats: regular, 3D, IMAX 3D, Dolby 3D. My favorite one was definitely Dolby 3D. That's the one I've been seeing it in the most. Um, Except, the IMAX 3D that I have, it's laser IMAX, so it's supposed to be the competitive to Dolby. Um, but the screen size is about the same. It's pretty big, but I want to go to another location not too far from here. It's probably like 30 minutes, same time frame, and watch a giant IMAX screen, which that screen fits about 800 people. So it's really, really big. So I want to watch it there. I don't think that one is laser IMAX, but still. Um, but honestly, whereas with the first Avatar re-release that they did in September, where I kind of preferred it in the regular 3D, because it was the frame rate was not as noticeable in that one, and the 3D just looked better. Avatar 2's frame rate was the same across all of them, and honestly, it was more just for the experience with the Dolby chairs and sound system, and the color palette, which was a little bit darker. But the 3D was the same for all of them, I felt like. So I really liked that. Also, the 3D, I can't believe I forgot this. I want to experience this movie as much as I can in 3D. Like I said, so that's why I'm seeing it so many times. The 3D for it is amazing. It is really, 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 really good. There was a few moments where like I would put down my glasses, and I'm like, is that so like? And then I'll put it up, and I'm like, why does that not look like blurrier at all? It just looks like 2D. And I put it up, and then it's in 3D. And I'm like, how did they do that? Because usually when you pull down your glasses, it's double image and stuff like that. But there was some moments where straight out, like even though it looked flat, it didn't look like an extra line. It just looked like a regular 2D image, and I'm like, wow, that's impressive. Um, but yes, there is so many scenes where I can literally just still see the 3D in my mind. One of the biggest ones is right when the movie opens and you see the forest and like the vine, and then being underwater for the first time, and when Loak is going down, and um, the finale as well. It's just there was just so many amazing 3D moments, and the 3D feels so real. It's just so good. I love the 3D in this movie. Like I can still see some of those in my mind, like the really, really good ones in particular too. Um, yeah, I'm just trying to picture more and more of them. I'm just so excited to watch it again this Friday in 3D. But yeah, so I love this movie, and I don't really have a lot of merch for it, like I'm saying. But I saw that AMC was selling a popcorn bowl, and I have a few of those. I have those for Star Wars, the Rise of Skywalker, Avengers Endgame, the Batman. The Batman one's pretty cool because it's like his mask, and except it fits almost no popcorn. And I used the other two tins because those ones are actually like big tins, the Star Wars and Avengers one. I use the Star Wars one way more though. Like all the time. I haven't used the Avengers one in like a year now, honestly. But anyway, I want to get into the extended Avatar stuff, so I might actually buy those graphic novels, the High Ground one. I'm not sure, but I'm rambling. AMC had because again, my love for Avatar is as big as it is for Zelda and Xenoblade, and I have merch for both of those and Naruto as well. Um, but yeah, so I felt like I needed to get some merch for Avatar 2. Like I said, this is a movie I've been waiting my whole life for, or half my life, and um, I was so excited when I saw that AMC was gonna have that, and I kind of want to show it to you guys here, but I'm a little bit disappointed, but at the same time, kind of not. So they have a popcorn bowl, and when I saw it, I'm like, it's a bowl. It's a legit bowl. It's literally a bowl, and it's like a Dollar Tree bowl, like for popcorn. It's like, why is this $25 or is it 20? Yeah. Um, but when I got it, I'm like, honestly, you know what? It's pretty cool. So I kind of want to show that off. Here we go. It is literally a bowl. but I love how you can see like the glitter in there. It just looks so cool. Um, and then like you can see over here, so it looks like, well, I mean, there is some designs as you can see throughout it. Of oh, I almost forgot somebody. Payakan. I love Payakan. That whale is amazing. That toucan, that whale is amazing. Payakan's the best. Um, Literally, like there was moments where I was cheering for Payakan, and I was like almost jumping up. I just love Payakan. But yeah, so you can see right there. So you have somebody on one of the things, um, and some water effects. And I like how, like, as you can see, it's like wavy, so it kind of resembles water. It also makes me think of Avatar: The Last Airbender, like they're bending water in a way. So because it's like a water bowl in a way, that's pretty cool. But one really cool thing about this is that this actually, uh, there we go, it lights up. Um, so as you can see, that is really really cool. I love that. Um, it, it looks like super vibrant. At when the lights are out, it's better. But this is just so cool, like so cool. Um, so yeah, but my biggest complaint with this is that it's just like a regular switch. Like you have to slide it. So I wish it was a push button, and you'll see why. Um, since I'm not since this is really just for collection, I don't want to put popcorn in here because then I would need to wash it. I'm just gonna leave the sticker here, and I don't want the batteries to go to waste too. But I don't know, maybe one day I'll use it. Like the biggest reason why I don't want to wash this is because I'm worried that water will get in here. But I haven't even really removed the sticker to really see how protected it is. I'm pretty sure it is well protected though. Um, but that was the first thing that they had. And then the second thing, which is honestly a little bit cooler, is a cup. And this is a huge cup, honestly. And you can see that there's water in there, but there is like there's nothing in here. Um, and as you can see over here, so it's kind of like those old 90s cup, where like on one it's like double layered, I suppose, and then like so there's like glitter on it, and like you can shake it, and like it just goes around. It just looks so cool. And then over here we have Payakan. Sorry. So yeah, we got some of the other um things, and then we got Payakan right over here, the Tulkun, and just some cool water stuff, and then Avatar. And then what's really cool about this as well, I probably should not have shaken that. Okay, I was able to get everything back. Um, what's really cool about this as well is that this has a button, and it also lights up. So I mean, look how cool that is. So I don't know, I think that this is really cool. But yeah, so, and I also love the lid, like it's aqua. Um, so yeah, this actually holds a lot of water. I used it for an icy when I bought it, but I didn't really want to put anything else in it. And then it comes with this really cool blue straw. So yeah, I wish that the bowl had a button like this, and I know that this is pretty waterproof because I didn't even see they have one so that you can see, and it didn't have the sticker under it, and it has like a rubber filling on it. Um, but with this though, for you to wash it, it's just a switch. So I'm worried water will get in it because it's not protected by rubber. But yeah, that is my merch. And I got a poster as well for Avatar 1 that they were just handing out. The Avatar 1 re release. It's not a giant poster or anything like that. I really want to get the poster though for this one, the one for Avatar 2, the one that has like all of their heads and like the water and the sunset. That's a beautiful picture. But yeah, I just spent an hour, just spoiler free, um, So I hope you guys enjoyed that. Right now I'm going to be talking about the spoiler stuff. I'm not going to go too long into that because I talked a lot and I literally just got off work and I still have a bunch of stuff to do. Um, but all right, so right now, thank you guys for watching. If you don't want to see the spoiler stuff, but yeah, thank you guys so much. I hope you guys enjoyed this movie. As for the spoiler stuff, so again, if you don't care about spoilers, please stay, or if you've already seen the movie, please stay. So I'm just gonna go right away and say this. Yeah, that callback that I was talking about with a different movie is that the end of this movie straight out becomes Titanic, and I love it because that Titanic is one of my favorite movies of all time. So yeah, the fact that this movie straight out becomes Titanic, I was just amazed. And then with like that ship falling apart, breaking, and like the water and all of that stuff. Natium's death is so emotional. That's where I got super super emotional, especially at the end with Neytiri singing her song, and they're doing Natium's funeral. Um, and there was another thing that I wanted to say that was part of my complaints that I didn't really want to get into spoilers with. Um, I'm trying to remember what it was, but yeah, overall though, I mean, I can't remember it. It was literally about one of my complaints, and I didn't really want to get into spoilers with it. What was it? Well, anyway, most of my complaints I kind of did say anyway, but yeah, just I think that Jake was a good dad. I just think that they could have given some of his lines to Neytiri, cause yeah, she's just there, and that okay, yeah, now I kind of remember. I mean, I don't know if this was it, but Neytiri, I just feel like they kind of didn't do much with her, like I said, because at the same time we kind of see Jake learning a little bit about the ways of the Matekaina tribe, but we don't see anything regarding Neytiri. She's just there and in the background, and then she talks for like 2 lines, and then she's riding on one of the seal plesiosaur things with Jake, and then and then she's cooking, and then she's mad, and the next thing you know, it's basically the end of the movie, or that last hour. um so yeah, that last hour too, again, I loved how compact and slow it was at the beginning, but it was tense, and then it escalated as it kept going. um but yeah, so Neytiri though, like, we don't see what she does, and then like at the end of the movie, like, she even has her ikran, the banshee, the flying creature. So how come Jake didn't go with his? Because all of the Sully family came with their ikrans. So where's the rest of them? Why is Neytiri the only one? Did she not learn the ways of the Matekaina people? We know they did. Um, also, I kind of forgot to say this during my spoiler-free section, but I love how they showed time passing through Renault's pregnancy. So I thought that was pretty cool. So we know they've been there for a few months. Um, but yeah, so like we don't see what Neytiri does at all, or what she learns. And for Jake, we only see that one scene or 2 scenes of him just learning how to ride the same thing. So I felt like that was a little handled badly. I really do think Neytiri could have been handled a lot better. Plus, my complaints about the eclipse not being really explained, and then at the same time, right at the beginning, the first time I saw the movie, I didn't even notice that the Matekainen tribe just disappears at the end. And I saw someone on Reddit commenting on it, but then I saw another person responding, and they're like, "No, they're there," and I'm like, "Oh, really?" And then when I saw it the second or third time, I looked, and that person was right. You can see right when that ship starts going down, and Paikan, like, destroys the whaling ship. um, they kind of and now I remember one thing I had to say. Um, they kind of they're kind of there in a way. They're you see them and then you see them leaving. So they do show that the Matakaina tribe does leave, but I just wish that it wasn't so far away where you could barely notice it. Because again, I can understand why people are complaining, like, what happened to them? Why did they just leave? And I mean, it's explained. Like Jake tells them, like, this is my fight. I'll take care of this. You know, you guys don't need to worry about it. But then they start fighting when they find out that they have this the Sereya, I think that was her name, the chief's daughter, and then they fight, and then that ship goes down, she's free, and then you see them starting to leave. So you can kind of get implied that once they felt like they avenged the Tokun, and that they also freed their daughter, and so they were like, all right, we're now done, this fight is over. If they have anything else to resolve, they're resolving it. I just wish that they did that a little bit better, because again, I can agree with why people are complaining, but I still do have to defend the movie and say, like, at least they do show the Metakaina tribe leaving, and it's right after the ship gets crashed and everyone starts evacuating. So it is there, but it's just not shown very well. Another thing that I kind of didn't really like, and it, again, going back into my expectations, was how people hyped up the big ending. Again, the ending is epic. It's just I was expecting all of that tension from when Neytiri and Jake are getting Took and Kitty to be throughout that whole final hour, but the whole full final hour was a lot more tense than edging, and epic. So again, and I was also expecting multiple tribes coming in and like fighting against the humans again, just like in the first movie. So again, this was more my expectations because of what people kept hyping it up to be. But when I understood what was going on, I'm like, this makes sense, and it is really good that they did it this way. So again, it's not really a complaint with the movie. It's just more about my expectations on how people hype this up. On another note, so yeah, that was one of my three biggest complaints. It was that I said at the earlier was, oh right, now I remember. This is one thing that I really wanted to say in the spoiler section. Spider. First of all, I love Spider and Kiri. They're adorable together. I also really like that Sugiri. I can't say her last name right now. Weaver. That she came back and played Kiri. I think it's kind of predictable, honestly, what they're doing with Kiri. Kiri's right now, it seems like she is either Grace reincarnated, because again, she died when she was connected to the spiritual tree, and then her avatar body was also there. So I think, that Kiri is either Grace reincarnated in a way, or she was born from, like, the father, I suppose, would be Ewa, or in that way. Because I love what they did with Kiri. They handled Kiri perfectly. But I think it is pretty obvious that it's either a reincarnation of Grace, or that Kiri is, connected to Ewa and all that, because she comes from Ewa. But yeah, so going back with Spider, I loved Spider. I thought he was done really, really well. A lot of people complain about him, and I'm like, why are you guys complaining about him? The dude literally cannot run away, because like they literally tell him, if you run away, this mask has a tracker, will get you in a few minutes and then beat you up. So like he can't really do much, and when he sees that he can do something, then he does. Unfortunately, that's towards the end of the movie, but that's not. I don't complain about that. I think it was handled really, really, really well. So, but yes, my biggest complaint was that everyone hyped up Spider to be Jake and Neytiri's adopted son, and I didn't want to say this during the spoiler-free section. I said that it is a straight-out lie, And it kind of is, but it's also kind of not, because again, the marketing was misleading. Um, so I just remembered the other complaint that I had. So yeah, the marketing was misleading, and the reviewers too. I only saw one article after I watched the movie for like the fifth time that straight out says Spider is Jake and Atiri's and their kid's adopted cousin, and that is more accurate. And that was when they were talking more about the I think it was one of the script writers, and he when they were recently, it's a new interview that came out, and he was talking about how he made Avatar, or how they made Avatar, wrote the scripts for two, but they had to split it into two movies, so that's gonna be Avatar 3. And then how they talked a little bit about 4 and 5, which I really hope we get. And right now, I'm really glad Avatar 2 is doing so well. I think at the time of this recording, it's done $1.4 billion. And I think they were saying it needs at least like 2 billion in order for them to make the Avatar 4 and 5. So, but yeah, with that said, so in that particular essay, that was the only one I saw where they said that Spider is their adopted cousin, and it makes sense, because at no point does Jake say like, "Oh, my son, I have to go look for him," or anything like that when Spider is kidnapped. So I was so confused. I'm like, is he not your son? Aren't you like worried? Like they just kidnapped your son. Are you not gonna go after him? But again, as the movie went on, I understood how they were handling Spider, and then I was here. But with that said, I really feel like they handled Spider pretty well. I just personally think that the issue with that is, again, I was expecting him to be their cousin, their brother, and I wanted moments where Jake is like confronting him, saying, "Look, it doesn't matter that you're human. I used to be human," and we kind of had that too later on, but not with Spider. Just more with just everyone in Jake's family. So we did get what I want. It's just it was not related to Spider, because again, I was expecting it was gonna be with Spider. So I really wanted moments like that with Spider because of all the expectations that I had in terms of what people call about Spider. But with that said, it is misleading, but it is also not, because at the very end of the movie, after Natium dies, Jake does adopt Spider, and he says a son for a son. So it's like, they took you, my son, and now I'm gonna adopt you. So I love that. So again, it is misleading because they were saying the entire movie is, like from the start of the movie, this is their adopted son. But he doesn't become their adopted son until the very end of it. Literally the very end of it. So again, I can't be too mad because it wasn't a lie technically, but the way that they said it made it seem like it was going to be throughout the whole movie, and that was a lie. But again, it was only at the very end. I'm glad though that Jake does adopt Spider. I really like that. And really, the last thing is, like, everyone kept saying that the motive that the humans are back is because they're killing the whales, and that's the whole reason why Jake goes on this adventure to protect the Matakaina tribe and help them and fight against them and like stop humans from stealing the ocean. Like, that's what they said that the movie was going to be about, and that's somewhat true. Like, part of the whole conflict at the end is because the humans started hunting the whales to get Jake's attention. But that's not why Jake goes to the Matakaina. That's not what drives the movie. That's literally what drives the ending, the end of the movie, the climax, the action. So I was expecting, it's really they're gonna be like going on this whole war because Jake wants to protect whales, which isn't the case. Jake goes into this war because he wants to protect his family, and the whales is just used to get their attention. So again, it's really just misleading, and those were some of my complaints, and I just kind of wanted to kind of get that out of the way in a way, and just say it. But overall, I love this movie, guys. I've been talking for an hour and 15 minutes now. So I hope you guys did enjoy this. If you're gonna be putting spoilers, definitely, just be careful, because again, this is a spoiler-free mostly video. So yeah, just be attentive of that. But let me know what you guys actually think. And I'm sorry that this video was so long. This is probably one of my longest videos here. I just had a lot to say about this movie, and I'm glad that I was able to make this discussion in a way, as long as it is. So with all that said, guys, rate, comment, subscribe, and I'll talk to you guys later. Bye.